Okay, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to our podcast again this morning. Again, a beautiful sunny Friday morning here in Pretoria, South Africa. Thanks for joining us from all over the world again. Yes, and welcome. We are really looking forward to today's chat. It's going to be a very, very interesting one. We've been actually looking forward for quite a while now, and it's going to be the approach in itself is actually going to be quite a bit different this morning. So I hope you're ready for this one. And at the same time, I also want to extend all our condolences and all our best wishes to everyone in the States going through the hurricanes and all the rough weather on their side at this time and place. So yes, we extend all our heartfelt condolences to those with loss as well. But then also back onto the topic this morning, yes, we're going to talk about this is still part of the KEY360 Essentials series. And we're talking today about money. So yes, a hot topic. It's always been a hot topic as long as project management has been in existence. But I think also it will remain a hot topic for as long as we know. This is something that forms the backbone of what we do. Without our money, we can't do a single thing. We all know that. So yes, it's all about saving money, managing your budget today, and we're specifically just starting off today. So we're not going to dig too deep yet, but yes, the whole talk, the whole presentation or chat is all going to be about project estimates. So just to kick us off and to get us going for today. So yes, before we just jump right in, I just want to remind you, please please subscribe, hit that notification button, share this with your colleagues as well and some friends as well. This is always a very, very interesting talk, and especially today. Looking at the rules here, again, like we say every week, there's no rules. So please, yes, what we mean by that is please take part if you do have any questions. In this case, I do want to request, please actually make use of the chat box on the side inside here to please mention any comments or if you have any questions here so that we can actually catch that and then discuss that at the end of our session today. And again, please share with a friend or with a colleague or with whoever you'd like, because these topics are really, really interesting and it's really actual. It's updated with the latest information on systems and what's happening currently in the marketplace. Okay. So that's it. I am your host, Gerard. I'm the training executive here at SSG Consulting, but today the focus is a little bit more on our guest speaker, who is Riel Marais. Thank you, Riel, for joining us today. Just an introduction to you. He is seen as a project consultant and knows much more than just cost management, but I know your main focus is actually cost management. So thank you for joining us today and taking us a little bit through some of the estimate side of life inside KEY360 and how we begin our projects by looking at the estimate first. So there's going to be some interesting things mentioned by you here, I know. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you regarding this. Our moderator is Corlia, so thank you very much again. Also, Corlia, she's looking after us and also catching all the questions inside the chat box. So we're going to hand over the floor to her at the end, just quickly, just to hear whether there are actually any comments or questions for further discussion. And then thank you to Martinez as well. Martinez at the back end also looking after us this morning from the IT side and making sure that everything runs smoothly technically. So thank you very much for that. And with all that said, I want to jump actually into the project or into the talk this morning, and hand it over to you, Riel.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. It's a privilege to share a few thoughts with you about the estimate of a project. I just want to quickly run through what are we going to discuss this morning. First of all, what is a project estimate? The next point we're going to look at is who does estimates? Why do we create an estimate? And then before question and answers, we actually want to go into KEY360. It's our award-winning project management platform that we use on all the execution of our own projects that we are involved in, our company SSG Consulting. So we are going to go in the system and show you a little bit how estimates work and how it looks in KEY360 as well. And as Gerard said as well, in the end, we will have a time to discuss questions and answers. Corlia is going to help with that. She will check the chat box and then just convey the questions to me. And I hope I do have answers for you. So let's jump into it. What is a project estimate? Now, when I started thinking about this, I just went to Google, obviously. Google is our friend, and just did a bit of research and say, what does Google say? So some of the things it says, and that I agree with, obviously, is it says an estimate is a guess or an assumption about the value that isn't too far off. So that's something we have to understand, and that's why the name is estimate. It's not we don't know in the beginning exactly what things are going to cost, because if you look at the definition of a project, it is something that we haven't done before. It's something brand new that we're going to do, and we're going to apply some principles to try and be as successful as possible in executing this project. So all of it is new. Most of of what we do in projects is a little bit of a guess, but it's an informed guess, because we have a lot of project management professionals that have a lot of experience in these things, and they became quite good at assumptions and making guesses about values and so on. Now, the next thing that I read was, it says a project estimate is the process of forecasting the time, cost, and resources needed to deliver a project. Now, most of the time when we think about an estimate, we think about the costs mostly. But while we think about costs, we do consider time and resources as well. And there's even other things that we like, risks. As we talk through it, it will be wise to actually list risks already as you talk through it, just so that you don't have to do it at a later stage. While it's a hot topic, while it's in your mind, while you're thinking and considering a topic, it's always good to think about the time, the cost, and the risk impacts on all these items as well. It says further on, it says it typically happens during project initiation and or planning, and takes the project scope, deadlines, or potential risks into account. There it speaks about the risks that I just spoke about as well. So it's a lot of things that's being considered while creating an estimate. It also says in the process of estimating, so clearly estimating is a process. It's not a once-off thing. It's an iterative thing that happens over and over again. Now, as you know, projects go through phases. You have the start-off phase that they talk about. Then you have pre-feasibility. Now, some people use different words or different terms, but the ones I know of is pre-feasibility, then you have feasibility studies, and then you have detailed design. As you go through this process of phases, the estimate becomes more detailed and become more accurate. So it's very interesting, or it's important to remember that in the beginning, when you start a project, you'll probably have your estimate will be a one line, and you'll say, I think it's going to cost us 10 million rands or dollars or euros or whatever. And then as you start going through pre-feasibility, feasibility, and detailed design, that estimate will definitely change from 10 million to something else, because you have more information available now. It says there are 4 things a project manager must consider: the project scope, the time frame, the people, and the budget. Now, we can go into each of these things in a lot of detail, but that's not the idea today. It's just to have a general overview and to give you some idea. Now, just below that, I have a little bit of a table there, just to give you an idea. If you must use Excel for a start, and you have to set up a estimate, what will you use? You'll have the project phase, or we can call it categorization. Then we have the task or the item that we want to cost, and then we can break it down into the labor cost and the material cost of that item. and the labor plus the material will give us a total. And then you see there's a space for notes as well. As we said earlier, there we can already put in timelines. We can discuss resources, who is going to do these tasks, how many people do we need, and then also list any risks that you might consider during creating this estimate. The next point we're going to talk about is who create the estimate. Now, it's interesting to know, if you Google that as well, you'll see there's actually professional estimators available in the world. And that's what they do day in and day out. They look at projects, they read through the scope of a project, they will look at some drawings that was set up already by engineers. And according to all this information, they will create and set up an estimate. But in my experience, I think it's more a team effort. There's a lot of people actually involved that speak through this estimate over and over again. Like a project manager, they usually people with experience in similar projects. It's very important to have their inputs. Then also you get cost controllers that has worked on previous projects that understand cost-wise what happens, and contract managers that understands the contracts and contract amendments and the mistakes they made in earlier projects, things they didn't think of. And then obviously engineers as well, that has a big part, architects, engineers, that has a big part in designing a lot of projects, or that's part of the project team. So it is, in my opinion, a team effort. But as I said, there's professional estimators, and they will be the person that's responsible for it, although they'll be assisted with the rest of the team to create this estimate. Let's move on to the next point. Why do we create estimates? Very interesting. As I said before, projects go through the phases. We talked about the startup phase, the pre-feasibility, feasibility. Now, as most of you might know, at the end of each of these stages, we have stage gates, what we talk about, and we look at some risks, and we look at the costs, and we look at the timelines. And at these stage gates, the reason for the stage gate is we need to decide, is this project still viable? Can we still go on? Will the project finish in the timeline that we have? Maybe we have a very strict timeline. So will the project, can we complete it in the time that we have to complete it? Let's say it's the Olympic Games. There's a definite date that the Olympic Games will start. Now, if you're not going to finish all the arenas and sport areas that you need to have this Olympic Games, if at the end of your feasibility or detailed design it tells you you're not going to finish it, why do it? Why even start with it if you realize you're going to be late? So it's very important to make decisions about time, obviously about risks, if some of the risks are too high, and obviously then cost as well. Cost is a big thing in the world. Everything becomes very expensive. We all hear about inflation. So we need to say, listen, is this money that we're going to spend on this project, is it worth it? Are we going to get a return on this investment? Because a project is an investment. Money is invested. And you need to ask the question, is it still worth our while? Are we going to make enough money at the end of this project out of what we created here that says this is a project that still needs to continue? So that's why we have estimates, to give some kind of answer to the people who needs to make the decisions about projects and if it should continue or not. So that was a very quick overview. Let me move on. The personal KEY360 experience. Now, it's really exciting for me. We love our system. We love the system that we created. We use it in the execution of projects. We also train other companies and people that work on projects to use our system. So I want to show you a little bit of everything that we discussed. So how do we use this in KEY360? Now, I created a few screenshots for you in this presentation, but I am going to quickly go out of the presentation and go into KEY360 as well, and just show you how the estimate will look in KEY360. So here is our estimate register, and there you can see we have an estimate register. We have a, oh, sorry, just go back. We have a code that we can give. We give it a name. There's a tick mark here that says original budget, and I'll come back to this and explain to you why this is here. And then you'll see here, very important, estimate, a revision number and a version number. Now, as I said earlier, your estimate always, as you go through the stages, you will have different revisions and versions of your estimate. And the estimate will become more complex. In the beginning, you'll have a one-liner. And as you go through pre-feasibility, feasibility, at the end of detailed design, your estimate will probably consist of thousands of lines. And what is important in KEY360 is we can log all these revisions and versions of your estimate in KEY360. And you'll see there's also a status. If this estimate can actually be sent through a workflow and people can review it, and then there will be a final person, usually the project manager, that will say, I'm happy with this estimate and I'm willing to approve it. The next slide I want to show you is just a little bit of a breakdown of what the estimate items, the list of items that create this estimate. What does it look like? And you'll see here on the left, there's different colors. That's what we call categorization. KEY360 is very big on categorization. And in this case, we have a cost breakdown structure that we applied. You'll see once again, we have an item code. We'll have a description. Then, very important, there's a cost code reference here as well. I'll speak a little bit about that when we're in the system again. We have a quantity, how many of these items, and then what does each of these cost? The KEY360 will take the quantity and the rates and multiply it with each other and work out the total cost for this item for you. Now, I'm quickly going to go out of the presentation and just go into KEY360. Okay. Gerard, is there anything you want to say?
Real, thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I actually wanted to ask you, do you, in your experience, do you see this happen a lot where people actually maybe make use of, let's say, the different revisions or the versions of estimates to predict what's going to happen in the future?
Yes, they definitely use this. And sometimes, you know, they work on a specific revision of it and they want to go and see, but what was our thoughts, or what did we do in the beginning of the project, you know, at pre-feasibility? What did we think then? So they actually, not just at the moment, but also going back in the history to see what we thought. Sometimes estimate or the whole stages of a project can take years. So people forget what happened or what their thought patterns were, you know, earlier on in the project. And they will go back to look at it, yes. So it's very important to always have that data still available and easily available as well.
Okay, if I may just quickly also ask you something else here, just off the cuff, is of course lessons learned. We discussed lessons learned a while ago, also during one of our podcasts, and the question also came up since then. Of course, as we prepared for this one, I was also asked to maybe mention this or to ask about this. Do you, in your experience, also see that companies tend to make use of their lessons learned from previous projects, from specifically their lessons learned registers, when they are considering new, you know, setting up new estimates and stuff? So how does that happen? Does it even happen? And does it happen most of the time, or actually lesser?
I must tell you, Gerard, in my experience, I think people actually forget a little bit about it. I think there are definitely companies that definitely, it's a big thing, and they make sure that they do look at it. I have worked at companies that did speak about it. You know, it did come up in meetings where they said, listen, but remember that project, remember the issues we had. We have to consider that. We have to plan and make space for that. So, yes, definitely. Some, I must say, not everybody does, but some companies does, and even policies and procedures. You know, some people take it so seriously that they'll make sure that they adapt policies and procedures that they use in the setup of projects to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes they made in earlier projects, and especially during the estimation of it. And just coming back to that, Gerard, I think the biggest thing, the biggest problems is when projects happen over, when a project is a long project and it happens over 4 and 5 years, a big issue is obviously price changes. Because in the beginning of the 5 years, we have a certain cost for something, but maybe certain materials are only made, or certain materials are only manufactured in specific countries, and there can be political upheaval during the time of the project in that country, and then it becomes very difficult to get hold of specific materials or specific items. We know there's the big war about microchips with China and America and stuff like that, and that can have a huge impact on projects. So there's a lot of things to consider, and as we said, there's always things that you haven't thought about. There's always things. So there's always lessons learned. There's always things you can apply and use in the future. Okay, but I'll actually speak a little bit more. How do we consider these lessons learned and these risks that we have? How do we manage that when we set up our estimate? Because there's some tips and tricks that people use, and we call it escalation and we call it contingency. When we plan, when we create our estimate, we usually have 2 more cost buckets, or we plan for it, which we call escalation. And let's quickly speak about that. Escalation is usually for the escalation of prices of steel or specific equipment that you're going to use in your project. If you have a project running over 3 or 5 years, there's every year this price of steel does increase, and we have a specific bucket where if there is a price increase, where we can fund that price increase from that bucket. And then contingencies is literally, and sometimes on projects they actually use 10% of a project, which can be quite a big amount for contingencies, and that's literally things we didn't foresee, the risks that actually happen. But that's how we build in for risk. We build in fat. We call it fat in our costing, where we add a bit of money. We have a bit of money in a bucket. So if risks does materialize, we can fund those cost of that risk from the contingency cost bucket. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Okay, so here it is. You can see, once again, it's the same estimate screenshot I have. This is just now in the live system. This is just dummy data that we had quite a bit of time ago. And what's interesting, if I open now this estimate, linked to this estimate is obviously this 247 million. Where do we get this from? And it actually comes from all the line items in the estimate. Now you'll see here, if I scroll down at the bottom here, you'll see total records 1,427. So this cost estimate, as I said, can consist of thousands and thousands of lines. The other thing while I'm in here that I just quickly want to show you is we categorize these items, as I said, according to a cost breakdown structure. So I'm just going to quickly show you in categorization manager. In the CBS cost breakdown structure, I'm just going to apply this. And then you'll see my register change a bit. In the left-hand side, I have the categorization that I applied to these items. And now I can group this estimate according to activity code, the group area, sub-activity, and sub-activity. And then we can open everything according to this. Now, what's really nice in KEY360, and we also use it in the cost report, is we can actually roll up these values. You'll see there's a cost value, but it actually rolls up, and it will give us an indication. If I minimize this again, it will show us the cost for each of these categorizations. So you'll see this 10 million consists of this 451, this 8 million, this 1.7 million, and then this 4.5 is broken down in these items again. So it's really easy if you want to look at specific costs, if you want to report on very specific parts of your estimate. When you apply categorization, it becomes really easy to get a visual view or to understand where these costs come from. It's not just a list of stuff. It's now a little bit more visual by using colors and grouping. It's almost like creating in Excel. We call it a a pivot table, but we actually pivot our data. And then what's really nice, we can actually draw graphs of these items as well. And then in the end, we get a visual idea of what part of the project actually is going to cost the most. Okay, I'm just going to close this view. This is the estimate. Now, the estimate items register is exactly that I showed you in the estimate register. When I opened the form view of it, the estimate items register is just a separate register. As I said here, we can apply different kinds of categorizations. We can even use discipline here. Is this part of electrical or mechanical, or is it part of project management costs or site establishment costs, whatever. We can add that to. We can add all kinds of other categorization that might make this information more visible to you and help you to understand it better. Now, why, once again, how does this, as I said earlier, there's a cost code reference here. Now, each of these line items in my estimate must link to a cost bucket, because in the end of the day, I want a cost report with a cost buckets, and the cost buckets are used. Now I'm going to place contracts, or I'm going to place purchase orders against a specific cost bucket. So the estimate, as we said, it's an estimate. We guess a value. So we create cost buckets. And then when the project actually, when we said we're going to go on and the project starts, we start to place contracts with contractors and suppliers. We place a purchase order or a contract with them. So we commit money against the cost bucket. Just to give you an idea about that, there's my cost report. You'll see I have cost buckets again. Each of these lines is a cost bucket that has, you'll see some of them as 0 values at the moment. We don't know if we're going to incur these costs yet. If we are going to incur the cost, we'll have to do some budget shifts and fund it from somewhere. Okay, but here you'll see your original budget. Now your estimate, when you link these items to a cost reference, which is this reference here, your cost code ID, that's the drop down you get here. The same code here, that's in your cost report. Now your cost report knows which items it must add together and create a cost bucket for me. The cost report you'll see is only 700 lines, where the estimate is 1,700 lines. So obviously many different lines in the estimate will add up and create one cost bucket. And you'll see original budget. This value in the original budget actually comes from your estimate. Your estimate supply the original budget in your cost report. Then you know during the project you can have budget shifts. As I said, if you have to shift money from contingency or escalation or anything else, you have budget shifts. Scope changes is if you add scope to the project that's approved by the owners of the project, or you remove scope from the project, it always has a cost impact. And you'll add money to specific budget to fund the extra scope or remove money. You want to remove scope. So in KEY360, it takes our original budget. It says plus budget shifts and plus scope changes, and then it gives us a current budget. And as I said, this current budget now is a bucket of money, and now we can commit money and we can place contracts against this bucket of money. So that's where estimation fits in with cost control and the cost report, specifically in KEY360. Right, I hope that makes sense. We will discuss the cost report in more detail at a later stage, but we only wanted to discuss the estimation. And just to refresh or just highlight the point again, the original budget from your cost report actually comes from the cost estimate, because these cost buckets are linked to the estimate items. You'll see each item is linked to a cost reference from the cost report. Okay, let's jump back to our presentation. And I believe the next phase, the next thing we're going to do is questions and answers. Cornelia, over to you. Is there any or anybody that see, is there any questions in the chat?
Hi, Real. No questions in the chat
No
so far.
questions.
Thank you.
Gerard, maybe do you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
I just wanted to actually comment, Real. Thank you for taking us through this morning. This was really wonderful, and it actually sparked a couple of ideas with me as well. And one of the questions that or maybe comments that I have is, of course, the fact that Key360 actually is really powerful. Again, looking back at what you showed earlier, the breakdowns within the register, those pivots that you can do,
Yes.
or the breakdown structures that you can build for yourself, that is something that really actually makes us very flexible, I believe. So instantly you can actually decide to pivot differently when someone maybe is asking about specific information in a specific format,
Yes,
so that they can compare things. But do you get asked a lot about that and having to do that a lot?
yes. Specifically, mechanical engineers, they want to look at their specific equipment. They want to look at, they're mechanical engineer. They don't care about the electrical stuff or the instrumentation stuff. And then it's really nice if you have it, if you have the discipline added to your estimate, it's very easy. Then you literally group by discipline, and you filter out all the rest and only get the mechanical stuff. And then you can even export that to Excel and give him a whole list. This is all the equipment that we planning to buy with the prices. And then obviously in the schedule, there might even be dates linked to that, which give them a really nice way to plan how they want to do their work. So yes, definitely. Also, obviously, they want to see sometimes the difference between, the cost that's, indirect costs, more, the offices and salaries and stuff like that. How much is that compared to the actual thing that we're building, and the cost that costs. So yes, definitely, it's very important to categorize your data. And any question somebody asks then can be very quickly and easily. As you see, if we group and filter, within seconds, it's not even a lot of work, but within seconds, we can supply answers, very detailed answers to people's questions.
That's great. And Real, sorry, just the last one. I just wanted to ask you about dashboards as well inside Key360. What is it that you usually get asked to put on a dashboard regarding an estimate? What are there any specific things that the clients usually want to see?
Gerard, I must say, not really the estimate. What most clients want to see is the cost report, and they want to see how much money is available in a bucket, so which comes from the estimate, obviously, and then how much was used already. Because if there is, maybe they did not think of something, and there's a contract amendment, they have to buy something extra, or they want to know how much money is still available, and the cost report does supply you that and say how much is committed and how much is uncommitted. But what we can do, what I have seen is, according to, once again, they might want to see how much money is spent on mechanical, electrical, those disciplines, and just get an idea, is this more a mechanical kind of project where the cost is much higher than compared to electrical and civil and structural and instrumentation, or is some projects is actually more instrument heavy, that is the highest cost. It's a very electronic, instrumentation driven project, so that might be the highest cost. So creating a dashboard or a bar graph of that just helps the brain to understand what we're busy doing here.
Yes, okay.
So it's not as much as maybe in other modules. It's more the data and the relation to the cost report. The dashboard is actually the cost report. But you cannot have a proper cost report without having a proper estimate.
Correct. Okay. No, thanks for that, Real. Really appreciate it. And I really also hope that helps to just clarify some of the basic questions out there. These are just some of the things that I was asked about earlier on. to mention today. So thanks for that, Real, again, for covering the estimate register so well this morning and for showing us exactly how it looks and also how it works, and really just making it easier for us to understand. Thanks for this. I think we're going to refer back to this conversation a lot in the future. So again, yes, just be expecting us to contact you again soon so we can actually start digging, I think, a little bit deeper into cost management. I think this was a brilliant start. Thank you very, very much for this. We do need to know, first of all, what is it that we're working with, and how much leeway do we have, and how do we start planning before we really actually start working inside the project regarding money. So thanks for that, Real. Really brilliantly covered there. That brings us to, of course, the next part here, me reminding you about the current courses that we're running from SSG Consulting side. The two flagship courses really at this point is, of course, the document management course, or the document control for EPC or EPCM projects as well. Absolutely brilliant course. There is the classroom course, which is, of course, 3 days. That would also get you 3 CPD credits there with CSR, XR, and PMI. So it is, both these courses actually are internationally accredited, fully accredited. And then, of course, the 2-day online, or let's rather call it the virtual courses, where everything is still actually handled live. That would obviously bring in some CPD credits. That would be 2 CPD credits for each attendee then attending those. And it's exactly the same for the planning and scheduling as well. Really 2 world-class courses. If you are interested in joining us for these courses, or just want to know more, maybe for us to send you some brochures, etc. So please, just in that case, contact us via ssgconsulting.co.za, or you are welcome to scan just the QR code here to the right, just with your mobile device, and of course just to join us by asking some questions via this portal or this link as well. And then, of course, next time we're going to be looking at misalignment, call HR. So yes, that's going to be very interesting as well. So you can see here we are really mixing and matching it all up with all the different modules and all the different focus areas really available within KEY360. So we're going to have a very interesting chat next week as well. We're looking really forward to this one. So please be sure to join us for that. And yes, thank you. I just want to say, or just remind you again, please don't forget, hit that like, that subscribe, and that notification button. And please share this with everyone around so that we can get the word out, and also get people to understand more that, you know, that there's some good systems, good platforms out there, such as KEY360. And if you're more interested in that also, again, please make use of that QR code that we just displayed earlier on, just to get hold of us, and we can have a demo and show you more around the system and really what it can do for you. And with that said, I really want to thank you for your time today. And I trust you're going to have a great Friday and a great weekend as well. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.